Danael, Tan Draconis stood in the gloom of his throne room. He gripped the hilt of the Draken blade, willing strength back into his limbs. Every breath came with pain. His wounds gnawed at him. Fatigue threatened to force him to his knees. His warriors pressed close with their weapons drawn. They were little more than shadows in the dark. Many were injured. Some wouldn't see another dawn. Yet they stood resolute, and Danael drew strength from theirs. Militia crouched behind barricades all through the chamber, autoguns and heavy weapons aimed at the doors. Civilians huddled at the rear of the hall. Some brandished improvised arms, some merely crouched in terror, weeping, shaking, and shielding their loved ones with their bodies. "Feel the Draken's fire within you," said Danael, his voice firm amidst the rasp of his warriors' breathing and the scuff of their feet on the flagstones. "Even if it is only embers, find it, stoke it. We're all that remains now, Draconis' last hope. The Emperor expects." The Imperium of Man is defended by many noble souls, warriors of the rank and file, angels of the Emperor, and untold other seneschals standing vigil in the defense of the innocent. Yet for each feudal world, valiant knights stand in their defense, many ruled by alliances of noble houses which swear fealty to a champion of their lands and ideals. For today, we shall elucidate the monarch of the Majestic system, a young sovereign impelled into greatness to vanguard his homeworld and peoples. The High King of Adrastapol, Danael Tan Draconis. Squired under the tutorship of Sire Marcos Dar Draconis, the deeds of the young Danael began of humble stock, a bookish child beloved by his father, sister, and peoples. Forged into a worthy potential warrior by Herald Marcos, as was his pedigree as a veteran of the First Orc War for Adrastapol. Alongside his childhood friend, Luke Tan Chimeros, Danael practiced his martial skill until reaching the age of 18. Succeeding in the trials of becoming, to which all knights of noble houses undergo to become worthy pilots of their steeds. Soon after their ascension, both unproved knights would accompany their kindred for a campaign which would forever change their lives. The industrial trade terminus of Pentecost, overrun with chaos cultists, the Knights of Adrastapol would not allow such heresy to continue, as Danael within his house, Oath of Flame, joined the campaign. His eldest sister, Jenica Tan Draconis, gatekeeper of the Exalted Court and veteran of many wars within her knight, fired defiant, encouraging her junior siblings' deeds. Luke Tan Chimeros would pilot the Sword of Heroes, with First Knight Marcos within Draken's Wrath, observing their first skirmishes. Their dropkeep making landfall, with his father, High King Tolwyn Tan Draconis, at the lead. His steed, Fireheart, led houses Draconis, Chimeros, Minotos, Pegason, and Wyvern to battle, alongside the Imperial Navy, Cadians, Mubraxis Dust Dogs, Tanhollis Highlanders, and other regiments of the Astra Militarum. Danael's mother, Lady Belladar Draconis, perishing during his earliest years, as the war cry, In Excelsium Furore, let the Draken's fire burn sounded. No doubt, High King Tolwyn wished he could have fought by her side one last time. Sires Ulrich and David Dar Draconis fighting by the side of his father as Marcos led Danael and Luke into battle. The voices of their ancestors advised them on strategy as they began their first tested steps as Knights of Draconis. Danael claiming his first kill, much to the congratulatory voices of his ancestors' spirits within his throne mechanicum. Soon High King Tolwyn assembled a council of war alongside his most trusted advisor, Marcos. The Lords Viscount Geraint Tan Mykeros, Grand Marshal Gustav Tan Minotos, Marchioness Laurent Tan Pegason, Archduke Duncan Tan Wyvern, and Consort Lady Alicia Car Manticos present during the council. Though Marcos assessed Danael and Luke unready for the fighting to come, Tolwyn refused to deny them a chance of proving themselves. High Sacristan Poloxus Tar Mechanicus revealing the Wordbearer's traitor legion to be in command of the enemy cultists. Though many had no comprehension that Space Marines could turn on the Emperor prior to now, this foe would not blunt the advance of the Knights of Adrastapol. Mortal Auxilia forces, having disabled the power source of Adnat Citadel through valiant sacrifice, should the Valle Electorum secondary power source fall, the campaign would surely be won. As Tolwyn assembled 50 knights to embark upon their primary objective, Dark Apostle Varric Law and his bodyguard, Gothro Gull, conducted rituals within Genitorum Bank 2, his subordinate brother, Kashor Kol, reveling in the bloodshed given to his patron, Khorne. tearing down Mechanicus sigils, erecting Chaos ones in their place. 32 Wordbearers slew a soul each to summon the presence of a demon, which allowed communion with a traitor within the Adrastopol Knights' ranks who had been present at their council. Denial's lance of Luke and Markos fighting beside Major Korak as they advanced across the east coastline of Donatos Primus. The young knights slowly learned to control the influence of the overwhelming voices beckoning from their thrones. Securing the Magnadestros Manufactori, Imperatos Magnificat, Diocese Promethean, and Totalum Hesperaxi, Denial's heart swelled with pride with news of his father's deeds across the Vox of glorious victories aplenty. Hoping he could one day achieve even a fragment of his father's pedigree as they reached the muster point of the Valley Electrum. As the War Council organized for the next day's battle lines, the assault would be spearheaded by houses Draconis, Chimeros, and Minotos. Tolwyn choosing the honor of his final feast to be spent with his children. The wise High King gifted Jenica a digi-weapon, and Denial a medallion once belonging to his grandfather who fought during the Praxian Crusade. The knights' revelries befitting the glories which would be won a day henceforth. Unfortunately for House Draconis, the traitors within their midst would soon strike, as their advance drove into the heart of the Valle Electorum. Betrayed by House Chimeros and Wyvorn as a scrapcode virus interrupted communications and beleaguered Houses Draconis, Minotos, and Pegason, Sire David perished by a shot to the back as Denial defended himself from Rosier da Chimeros. Killing the traitor as an act of survival as Minotos and Pegason knights fell around him, High King Tolwyn heard the voice of his great-great-grandfather, Baron Nathaniel, warning him to save his children and preserve their bloodline. Contacting Jenica as he slew 3 traitor knights envious of his crown, the Gatekeeper rallied her forces using Squire Code communications, to which Tolwyn's forces would likewise adapt. The Wordbearers leading thousands of cultists to attack their mortal auxilia, Luke Tan Chimeros looked on in horror as the betrayal unfolded, his life saved from a Wyvorn knight before being taken prisoner by Sire Markos. Reuniting with Denial, Markos, Jenica, and Luke, High King Tolwyn ordered his remaining knights to cross a transit bridge, then collapse it behind them. His steed Fireheart damaged by the traitors as he commanded Markos and the survivors to leave him behind. Sacrificing the lives of himself and his men to preserve his children, High King Tolwyn dueled Viscount Geraint of House Chimeros, now knowing him to be the architect of their betrayal. His last moments spent telling his children that he was so bloody proud of them. Tolwyn sent a final encoded message to Markos before comforting Denial that he was sorry, but now more than ever, he must stay strong. Tolwyn slain, releasing his ancestors from their confinement as his throne Mechanicum was destroyed. The Loyalists hid within a nearby munitions warehouse before devising a plan to avenge their liege lord. Markos demanding answers from Luke, to which Jenica rebuked him for his rage. Though his anger was understandable, the Code Chivalric did not permit such conduct to a prisoner and was thus unbecoming of her father's herald. Lady Susette da Draconis, Sire Ulrich da Draconis, Grand Marshal Gustav Tan Minotos, Lady Elionette da Pegason, and their scant kindred present to witness the impromptu coronation of High King Denial. High Sacristan Poloxus forged a new crown for his sovereign and oversaw repairs of the knights for 4 days of toil. Sires Sylvest, Galharad, Holdred, Christoph, Nathan, and Pater, all slain alongside their steeds of the Crimson Sword, Drake Ascendant, Honor Infernus, Blazeclaw, Draken's Flame, and Pyrefang. The cost this day had been higher than ever in their house's history. Varak Law executing Dak Shah for his failure to destroy the transit bridge prior to the knight's escape. Following such a display of violence, Viscount Geraint and Archduke Duncan met with the Dark Apostle, learning of his great ritual which must not be disturbed. High Sacristan Poloxus developing a data ward countermeasure for the scrap code. Luke, after besting Markos in a duel of honor, renounced his family name, title and deeds, and declared himself a Freeblade henceforth, the Knight of Ashes. Delving into the memories of his ancestors for guidance, Denial observed High King Roderick Tan Chimeros' reign during the Horus Heresy, his fighting against the renegade houses, Hydrax and Medusos, alongside his allies of Draconis, a distant cry from their current dishonorable conduct. Next, seeing memories of the former High King, Geraint Tan Chimeros, and his own father within the ruins of House Manticos. Within the rubble, a sole survivor, Alicia Car Manticos, would remain of this renegade house of Adrastopol, purged root and stem of heresy. The final vision, showing banners of Heist Chimeros defaced with heretical markings, though Geraint surrendered his crown to Tolwyn, not out of respect, but as an act of punishment, a burgeoning romance seemed to form between Geraint and Alesia. Awakened by his sister, now unsure of even his own father's legacy as a usurper to the crown. Regardless, Danael resolved to be a good High King and accepted the burden of the crown to best bring House Chimeros to justice. 40 knights marching to the captured Arbites precinct as Jennica led a sortie to the Valley Electrum. Danael's knights stayed their hands as within the precinct, Luke observed Lady Alesia being held hostage within the palm of a traitor knight. Refusing his stepmother's entreaty to rejoin House Chimeros, now spurned, the daughter of House Manticos revealed her true nature as a sorceress of Tzeentch, unleashing her power to malform Grand Marshal Gustev unto death due to her sacristan Zedadan's secret tainting of his throne. Attempting to destroy the knights to fulfill her prophecy received from the Architect of Fate. After burying the knights within the precinct, Alesia returned to her beloved Geraint, promising to birth new children to rebuild his bloodline's glory. Plotting to betray the Wordbearers, knowing they could not be trusted, false King Geraint mobilized his forces to assail their ritual site as the survivors of the precinct withdrew to their kindred's position. Jennica combating demon engines within the plaza of the Valley Electrum alongside Sire Marcos. High Sacristan Paluxus deployed his data wards, allowing short-range communications to draw remnants of the Loyalist Auxilia and stranded knights to their side. Losing 20 knights during the battle, Luke and Danael regardless rejoined their kindred in their hour of need. The revelation of Alesia's corruption since birth, an ill omen galvanized by Jennica's remembrance of her mother, Queen Polaina's mistrust of the consort of Geraint. Danael and Luke both wrestling with their father's secrets. Nonetheless, the High King ordered the assault of the Adamant citadels, the infighting between the Wordbearers and traitor houses too timely to ignore. Marcos revealing the last words of his erstwhile friend to protect the High King's children at any cost. With the voices of his ancestors now uncongested, Danael knew that now was the time to prove his worthiness of the mantle of ruler of Adrastropol. Toppling the Adamant towers before advancing to the Valley Electrum, Varrak Lor began his ascension as a demon prince, sacrificing his loyal bodyguard Gothro Gol and denying him the right to lead the warband in his stead. Sire Ulrich slain by House Wyvorn as their Archduke's corrupted form reached the Squire of Martyrs. Though Geraint had lost over 40 knights, Duncan Tan Wyvorn had ensured his bloodline's extinction, sacrificing his men to empower his knight Porphyrion, Iron God. 18 men of House Chimeros facing the Loyalists as Lady Alesia sought to slay the Dark Apostle. Palixis diverted the enemy scrap code against the Iron God, allowing Sire Marcos, Lady Suzette, and Tamzane to fell the abomination. Jennica ending the life of Viscount Geraint, ignoring his rantings as the rightful king of Adrastopol. Upon death, his consort Alesia screamed with grief, feeling his loss far from the battlefield through their unnatural connection via the warp. Mutating each word-bearer barring her path into warp-spawn mutants through anger-drenched sorceries. As Alesia reached the Dark Apostle, both Luke and Danael crashed into the ritual site to end its madness. Once more attempting to sway the Knight of Ashes to join her cause, Luke Kar Chimeros refused such heresy, fighting the beast which broadcast the scrapcode virus, casting its bodies into the fulcrum of the ritual energies. Ending the life of Varrak Lor as capricious demons tore his soul apart for his failure. Though only 8 of his remaining knights' retinue would endure the betrayal of Donatos, High King Danael had proven himself a worthy ruler. The escape of the sorceress from the sanctuary doing little to diminish his glory. Re-establishing contact with naval contingents in orbit, ordering them to bombard the sanctuary and all trace of the heretics. With the conclusion of the Battle of Seven Spires, Donatus was cleansed of chaos. Danael promoting Jennica to the role of First Knight and Suzette as the gatekeeper of House Draconis, ignoring the long-held precedent never to appoint such positions to women within his house. Luke Kar Chimeros would search for the sorceress responsible for his bloodline's downfall following their victory. For whilst a delegation of Inquisitors made all haste to investigate Adrastopol for signs of Chaos treachery, Alesia Kar Manticos continued her schemes to bring low such noble souls, for though Danael had proven himself a warrior, now the trials of rulership would begin. Upon the world of Kandraka, the Datsup clan of the Faithful Sons battled to defend their domains. Chieftain Fo Madar, with less than 100 warriors, staving off the onslaught of the planet's similarly native Gatna clan. Luke Kor Chimeros, now a veteran of 5 years as a Freeblade, having assembled a lance of mercenaries to fight by his side. At the hour of the Datsup clan's greatest need, such exiles fought to defend their homes. The Knight of Ashes, accompanied by Sire Ranulf Vogais piloting Void, Lady Maria Castrada piloting Wrath Inescapable, Lady Ekaterina Hespar piloting Duty Unending, and Sire Jadama Swiss piloting Crimson Death, while some such as Hespar once hailed from House Hawkshroud and Whis of House Krast, others proved more secretive of their former allegiances. Such a ragtag collection of ignoble knights driving back their aggressors much to the appreciation of Fo Madar. In return for their aid, the chieftain directed Luke to the prize which he sought, the Oracle of the Silver Eye. Finding upon the isolationist navigator past the gnashing rocks of Laguku's Moor, this prophet foresaw the Freeblade's arrival, giving him a parchment with the coordinates needed to locate Alesia Kar Mantikos, warning Luke that a great doom would soon befall Adrastopol, which could not be delayed. As the exile chose whether to let his target slip away or save his lifelong friend from peril, High King Danael ventured to the domains of House Minatos. Meeting with the new Grand Marshal, Kurt Tan Minatos, to discuss progress on the house's commitment to enforce the planet's Adrastopolian defense decrees, fortification measures had been slow as House Minatos attempted to rearm their forces following the Donatus triumph. House Pegason's air force, dwarfing both that of Draconis and Minatos, following their purge of what remained of House Chimeros and Wyvorn's lands, though Danael offered a chance to join him for the activation of the new Imperatus Dam complex, Kurt once again denied the High King's act of diplomacy. Leaving the Lord of Minatos to stew in his resentment for the loss of his father at the hands of Alesia Kor Mantikos, Danael met with his now consort of 5 years, Suzette, Master of the Faith Sire Percivain, and Master of Arms Sir Gareth. First Knight Jenica returning from a year of campaigning against the Xenos of Pyrodia. Though Danael had worn the crown for half a decade, the shame of his house's seizing of such a mantle during the Yordax Crusade continued to weigh heavily on his soul. Attending the ceremony of the Imperatus Dam alongside Marchioness Laurent Tan Pegason, during the proceedings, Danael would cite a tech adept attempting to warn Planetary Defense Captain Bannock of an impending threat. Evacuating the Imperatus Dam, as Auspex scans detected an unknown inbound object, the knights upon piloting their warsuits tracked the anomaly to its crash site, revealing a retinue of Inquisitors within their sundered transport. Inquisitor Tain Masata warning the knights that an Orc horde was soon to invade Adrastopol. Having been trapped within the warp since their departure to investigate the planet for signs of chaos, their escape from its skeins had spat them directly into the path of the Greenskins. Masata's flagship, Light of Truth, sacrificed to ensure his retinue's escape. Despite the threat now posed to Adrastopol, Tain demanded to be taken to the site of House Chimeros' corruption, to deem whether the Taint of Chaos had truly been excised. Jenica accompanying the Inquisitor to the ruins of House Chimeros, Danael oversaw fortifications of his fiefdom. As Sire Garanth evacuated the Golden Swathe, 23 knights of his kindred mustered to defend the Drakenspire. Estimating 9,000 Orc Voidcraft to be in system, housing unknown hordes within their confines. Though House Pegason's Eyrie would prove more easily defendable, House Minatos would likely remain isolationist in their tactics. Danael ordering his men to strike at rock landing sites to stem the Greenskin tide. After 3 days of travel, Jenica reached the husk of House Chimeros, learning that Masata had purged many worlds prior to prevent the spread of chaos. The Bastion fleet in orbit doing little to fin the Orc assault as a numbered detritus fell from the skies. Mount Imperius and the Umbran Agriplex would be among the first holdfasts to be crushed instantly. Lands of House Minatos worst affected by such bombardments, as the Adrazel and Adorape polar continents drowned in Orc bodies. The warlord, known as Gorgruk Killfist, laid waste with his vast armies, consisting primarily of Death Skulls. 4 days of fighting, tiring Danael's lance, yet not diminishing their zeal. As they combated Gorkanauts, Morkanauts, and endless seas of greenskin mobs, the knights began to notice their pilfering of Imperial armor. Marcos' knight, Honorblaze, damaged during the fighting, as Lady Melessa's steed, Draken's Ire, fell to strange, electrocuted net devices. Having incurred 10 knight casualties that same day, Danael ordered a full retreat to all forces to defend their closest holdfasts. Killfist's invasion, 3 to 4 magnitudes larger than that endured by the First Orc War of Scarjaw. Marcos surmised that this battle may prove the end of not only House Draconis, but that of Minatos and Pegason, should their fortunes not change. Jenica leaving Sire Edward and Wraith to guard the gates of the Chimera Keep as she dismounted and ventured forth alongside the Inquisitor. Within its depths, bodies torn of their eyes and bones gnawed by human teeth proved chaos still festered upon Adrastopol. Kassakin Sergeant Caston, once of the Cadian 85th, leading the spear tip of the expedition within. Alongside Interrogator Nesh, the Death Cult assassins Shaynema and Shemara, Auto-Savant Lentigious Mortons, Astropath Venquist, and Jaquero Dubuco, Jenica waded into the smothering darkness. finding the grave pits of the heretical purgers to have been defiled as a deep chasm gaped within the center of the Chimera Keep. As the retinue delved deeper, the defenders of the Drakenspire reported losing contact with House Pegason 2 hours ago and House Minotos 36 hours prior. As the High Celt burned and orcs beset the forts of Charon and Redfang, House Draconis mustered all available resources to defend their home, the hordes of greenskins amassing both in the north and east. Gorgruk's forces gathering to the north, estimated to be 100,000 strong. The Goth war boss known as Drog had assembled 21,000 to the east, in efforts of stealing glory from its rival. Seeing the leadership schism as an opportunity to disperse their forces before reaching the Drakenspire's walls, with the order to evacuate the Northrise orbital station, High King Denial led his forces to confront the Goth clan. Struck by an enormous Gargant, firing cannons which sundered 3 knights in a single blow, Denial ordered all forces to focus fire on Drog's fell god machine, his thermal cannon destroying the beast before it attempted to flee by overloading the Gargant's energy core. With Drog's warband dispersed, the Knights of House Draconis withdrew back to the walls, Sir Gareth accepting the duty to purge what remained outside as his comrades made haste for the northern wall. Yet in the hour of House Draconis' greatest need, the exiles of Lucar Chimeros arrived in orbit, their destroyer Navy cruiser, the Unbroken, piloted by Captain Shas, readying for a rapid and dangerous dropkeep deployment. Braving the Orc flotilla's lines as the brazen captain reveled in the suicidal maneuver, though the Unbroken succeeded in deploying the dropkeep and escaping annihilation, their hasty release had thrown the exiles hundreds of miles off course into the Diaphane Highlands. Aided by the Tauroxes of Sergeant Undo and Avanza of Colonel Gessman's Vesserins, as they embarked to the operational sanctum Voxaray, within the facility, Luke contacted High King Denial. Told to unite the houses of Adrastopol to aid the Drakenspire, now that Warboss Gorgruk was in the field and vulnerable to a combined counterattack. Before losing contact, Luke informed his friend that he discovered the location of Alesia and would need his aid to bring her to justice. 70,000 orcs harrying the defenses of the Drakenspire as Jennifer faced mutants of Tzeentch beneath the carcass of House Chimeros. Though cult assassin Shamara perished in the fighting, the Inquisitor's retinue ventured on. Discovering a statue in worship to the Architect of Fate, more heavily defended by even larger heretical abominations, Jennifer, though fighting valiantly, would be plunged into a chasm as the Inquisitor's forces attempted to push further into the shrine. The Drakenspire's emergency genitorium disabled by a blast from an Orc Gargant's strange energy weapon. Now with no shield array, communications nor steeds to defend their realm, the defenders continued to fight desperately. Knights disembarking to fight on foot as command staff used written notes to pass on instructions to outposts. As Orc military rained down, Denial ordered refugees to be protected within low-level spires of the Drakenspire. Sir Garanth barely surviving his withdrawal into the walls of the keep as the Draken's Eye Gate fell. As the beacon fort repelled the unending hordes, Denial fought at the front lines with Drakensword and bolt pistol in hand. The siege shortened from weeks to days. With this catastrophic development, Denial as a last resort ventured into the depths of his ancestral armory, activating its long-dormant seals with his grandfather's amulet. Finding Archaeotech body gloves within, capable of projecting refractor fields which deflected small arms fire of even the most dangerous infantry weapons. As the knights donned their new less imposing panoplies of war, Jennifer awakened within the Shrine of Tzeentch. Jennifer finding upon an ancient Drakensword of her house chained within the heart of a Chaos Shrine. Upon releasing it from its confines, the Emperor's light swelled in her heart, renewing her of strength as she searched for a means to escape. Contacting Edward and Nuala, who told her that the Inquisitor's retinue had escaped via their charger transport, stating that Jennifer had died. With all haste, her lance chased after Masata's retinue to the southwest of the Chimera Keep. Finding upon their wrecked transport being beset by the Greenskins, Masata explained that their story had been a ruse as they searched Adrastopol for years for a grimoire containing the true name of the patron of Alesia. Having faced Varrock Law thrice in his tenure, failing to end the Dark Apostle's reign of terror. For 4 years, he had observed the nobles of Adrastopol for signs of chaos, yet never found a hint of corruption within their hearts. Responsible for the Orc hordes descending on the surface to cover his retrieval of the grimoire, Masata had set a contingency with the captain of the Light of Truth to fire an Exterminator's payload onto the surface should his team not return within a solar day. Knowing her conduct in line with the Code Chivalric to be unimpeachable, Jennifer Tandraconis submit her life to the Inquisitor's mercy. Jennifer accusing Masata to be unknowingly a pawn of the schemes of chaos, yet would allow him to search his soul for any hint of treachery by her own hand. Seeing reason for his folly as the knight's valor held true, Masata, now inspired by her bravery, spoke of an Aquila lander hidden nearby, which may allow them to prevent Exterminatus should they reach the Drakenspire's Vox Array. Luke Car Chimeros, reaching the domains of Marchioness Loretan Pegason, speaking of the Oracle of the Silver Eyes prophecy. The Lady of Miracles riding her own knight, which bore the name Oracle, would commit her kindred and their air force to save House Draconis. Saving House Minotos from their perilous last stand within the Iron Maze against the hordes of the Greenskins, Grand Marshal Kurt van Minotos set aside his vengeance to slay the stepson of his father's killer in order to save Adrastopol. Denial standing side by side of the mortal auxilia of Captain Bannock. As aid rallied to preserve the Drakenspire, the High King was cast from its ramparts by the forces of Gorgrok. Saved by the men of the 65th Regiment, Denial awoke at the side of Suzette within the heart of his throne room, the Orcs massing for their final assault, with their war boss leading the charge. 200 Knights of Adrastopol fighting outside the walls of the Drakenspire as they tore a path to Denial. As their High King fought war boss Gorgrok in single combat, the Bright Sovereign targeted the beast's back-mounted generator, landing a deadly blow. Roasting Gorgrok alive within his armor as its systems overloaded, though the Greenskin leader had perished, its forces remained undiminished in their zeal. Captain Bannock slain in the fighting, much to the grief of the High King. Yet as the line of Draconis seemed lost, Luke Car Chimeros tore through the throne room, saving his lifelong friend and scattering the Greenskins. Denial leading Luke, Suzette, Marcos, Persevain, Kurt, Elionat and Loret to destroy the Gargant, which once again readied to disable their fortress's systems. Several knights incapacitated by the Gargant, with only minutes spare to prevent disaster. As the full might of Adrastopol sundered the monstrosity, Inquisitor Masata alongside Jenica and High Sacristan Paluxis transmit the authorization codes to the Light of Truth to disengage from the fray. Adrastopol saved with the timely intervention of militia, mercenaries, nobles and exile knights. With the Second Orc War victorious, a war council in time would be called by High King Denial to repay Luke Car Chimeros for his aid. Upon Victor's Day, Luke presented the coordinates which would lead them to Alicia Car Manticos, Inquisitor Masata judging the Knight Houses vindicated of the charge of heresy, aiding them in their crusade. Venturing to the Mechanicus outpost of Hastur, within 200 light-years distance of the Eye of Terror, the hunt for the Witch of Adrastopol would begin. Yet whether the quest of the Knight of Ashes was successful remains a mystery. Yet the legacy of High King Denial remains that of a paragon of the Code Chivalric, a story of a warrior and statesman whose deeds in so short a reign eclipse many a knight of legend. With the Orcs mired in infighting and the seats of Imperial power secured, the campaign began in earnest to purge the Xenos invaders from the face of Adrastopol. Nor did High King Denial waste any time in ordering the commencement of reconstruction, setting a punishing pace for the restoration of those strongholds and facilities damaged in the fighting. Even as Mount Imperius was being purged of Xeno-witches, and the fortress of the Ferric Hills and the South Valatane were being reclaimed, ruined sections of the Iron Maze and Drakenspire were already being cleared, and scaffolds rising like fresh shoots after a forest fire. Such was the nature of High King Danael, a man for whom victory in war was not an end unto itself, but merely a necessary step along the road to prosperity and strength for his people. This has been a tale of the Great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. Honor, compassion, and valor are all virtues to which the Knight Houses aspire, their chivalric code ensuring adherence to ideals which bind their myriad bloodlines in purpose. Yet probity is not reserved solely for aristocrats, and often even those of vaunted bloodlines are in their duty to uphold respectability, uprightness, and courage. So no matter your origins, whether rich or poor, downtrodden or privileged, do not let your upbringing define your actions. For your own will shall mold the impact you have on the world regardless. Your decisions, whether for good or ill, yours alone to make.